So, welcome everyone to 10 Steps to Starting a Small Business, hosted by the City of Mississauga's Mississauga Business Enterprise Center. We are your central source for small business information, resources, and guidance. Similar to this, we offer a variety of services and available to you remotely. To get in touch with us, and for all of the online resources and other information and programs that are available, you only have to remember one URL, mississauga.ca/MBEC, and it will take you to our website. It's done so much of the talking. Let's introduce Sue today. Our small business consultant, I think many of you have probably already met her, has an amazing history of running her own business and supporting other small business owners such as yourself. So food industry is your background, but your expertise is incredible because you have helped people with importing businesses, retail businesses, you name it. You have found resources if you don't have the answers. And that is the role Sue Lovelace plays currently at the City of Mississauga. And her contact information is there, and she's also on LinkedIn, and feel free to reach out to her if you would like.
So welcome everyone. It's true. I was in the food business, the pizza specifically, for over 24 years. But before that, I ran a summer camp when I was 10. I collected pop bottles when I was 5. I've had a lot of experience. I think I was always wanting to run a business pretty much my whole life. And that was what my mother always said. You're going to run something. We're just not sure what it is. But today we are going to talk about the 10 steps to starting a business. And I'll tell you, there's a lot more than 10 steps, but we wanted it to be 10, right, Laura? You told me it had to be 10. So there are steps within the steps. And obviously, you're not going to learn everything you need to know to start a business in 1 hour. That would be impossible. So as Laura mentioned, if you have any specific questions to your business and it's not addressed today and I don't answer it through the chat, please feel free to email me. And I know that Laura will be sharing my email to anyone, and I will hopefully get back to you pretty soon. Just give me a couple of days. Today we're going to find out whether you're ready to be an entrepreneur. We're going to learn about the 10 steps to starting a business. And as Laura mentioned, at the end of the presentation, we are going to have questions and answers. So we have about an hour. So and sometimes we go a little bit longer. It just depends on the number of questions. So it sounds like the majority of you are looking to start a business. Some of you have existing businesses. Just so you know, you're in really good company, because every year close to 100,000 new businesses are started in Canada. Small business is big. It accounts for 50% of all jobs created in Canada. I'm going to highlight some of the key steps and considerations that you need to prepare you for starting and operating your own business. So this test is amazing, and I would encourage you to go to the BDC website. I believe it's 54, 55 questions. It really is helpful because the one thing about entrepreneurs is they're just like anybody else. Laura and I have weaknesses and strengths. We've both been in business. I had a lot of skills that are complementary to an entrepreneur, but there are a lot of things that I wasn't great at. Had some, well, we won't get into that, but it's important to know what your weaknesses and strengths are. And knowing that, you'll understand where you need coaching. And when you get that coaching, you'll be able to realize your full potential. So being your own boss, we hear about it all the time. Wow, wouldn't it be great to be your own boss? But remember, it's not for everyone. So before you take this huge step, take some time to find out if you have what it takes. You need to understand that there's benefits and there's challenges of entrepreneurship, and you need to learn about your chances for success. No one opens a business to fail. However, on average, 7 out of 10 businesses will fail, and given the current situation, I expect that this number is even higher. I know that when Laura started out, when she was only 19, did you tell me?
19, yes, and before that ran the family business for a couple years.
So were you nervous? Did you do well right away in your bike shop, or what?
Do you know what? We did We just did it because we were passionate about mountain biking and we just thought we would do it, but it grew so fast and it went out of control. We didn't have a plan. We actually had to shut it down. I went back and wrote my business plan and reopened it, and it was successful after that. But yeah, it was we didn't really know what we were doing. We just wanted to hang out with other cyclists and sell them bikes.
Hmm. Well, I was
Yeah.
very passionate about food. I think that's why I ended up in the pizza business, but I worked in restaurants my whole life and it was always something I enjoyed doing. And I didn't like getting up in the morning. So the night business kind of made sense. But just remember, in the early stages, you're going to wear a lot of hats. Um, Not only are you the owner, the operator, you are the marketing manager, you are the sales representative, customer service support, IT. And in my case, I had to become very handy. I was also the janitor. So the list goes on. In the early stages of any business, cash flow is always an issue. I even did my own bookkeeping, which I will tell you was a horrendous mistake. I'm a terrible bookkeeper, but an excellent pizza maker and manager. So you should probably just stick to what you're best at and delegate the things to those with those strengths. Again, it depends on your financing, but I will tell you that because I did my bookkeeping, it ended up costing me double to have a bookkeeper come in and fix everything because I kind of messed it up. So consider the following traits common to many entrepreneurs: support from family and friends. So in my case, I was extremely lucky. My in laws were basically retired at the time I opened my pizza store, and they didn't want their grandchildren to grow up in the back of a pizza store. So they would take them on weekends. I had friends who would babysit for pizza. You have absolutely no idea how well the barter system worked for me. I don't know if you use the barter system in your, where did you get things fixed? Hey, here's a bike.
I was fortunate to have family that helped with my children too, but we didn't get into the bartering. No.
No, you didn't do the bartering? Oh, okay. Maybe. Anyway, it's a little challenging right now, as we all know in the virtual world. But as Laura mentioned, Mississauga Board of Trade is having virtual networking events. We also had one on August 31st. I don't know if anyone on this webinar attended. So they are out there. I mean, it's a little new for everyone. And maybe a little awkward because regular networking was always awkward. I always was nervous at my first networking event. I wasn't really sure where to go or who to talk to. And now again, we're, you know, taking ourselves out of our comfort zones in some cases. But networking is key, and networking is one of the ways you can find partners, you can find mentors, investors, or just be able to talk to someone, bounce, your ideas off of them and get their opinion. As an entrepreneur and a business owner, you really aren't working 9 to 5 in most cases. Laura's business was 7 days a week, mine was as well. 12 to 15-hour days in the beginning. So that was a real challenge. I just felt like I never had a day off. But as Laura stated as well, she loved what she was doing and I loved what I was doing. So it's funny when you love what you're doing, it doesn't really seem like work, really. Now I've, as Laura mentioned, I've been a business consultant. I worked in Norfolk County, Brantford, and when I was in Norfolk, I had an interesting gentleman walk into our center, and he was an electrician, and he said, I'd really like to go out on my own. I want to be an entrepreneur. I've been working for this company for many years, and I just know I can, do a really good job and I can make better money. And I said, okay. So I helped him through a program that we had. And 2 months in, he was done. He didn't want to do it anymore. He says, I hate being a business owner. People call me at all hours. He said, at least the owner I worked for was respectful, that I had a family. And he says, I don't want to do this. People are calling me on weekends. And so it's kind of funny. It's like, it's not for everyone. For me, I can't understand why anyone wouldn't want to run a business. It's, so much fun. And if you're passionate about what you're doing, it really does make a difference. Now, there was one thing that was difficult for me. I'd always worked for someone, so I always got a paycheck. Well, when I started my business, for about 6 months, there was no check. Now, I did save enough money to live on for the first 6 months, and obviously my hope was to make some income eventually. And my goal was to break even in the first year. And it might sound like an odd goal, but the store was losing so much money. The day that I broke even, I was just so happy. So if you're not sure what breaking even means, I probably do, but I wasn't losing any money and I wasn't making any money, but that was my goal initially. And then after that, things improved. So, dedication to achieving a long-term goal. I hear it all the time where people just give up. And there's a quote out there about people. So many people give up right before they're successful. I don't know how it goes, but you really do have to be patient. You have to realize that things don't happen immediately. Like my first day when I bought my store, the phone didn't even ring. I waited and I waited until 8 o'clock at night. I picked up the phone because I was so frustrated. I thought, doesn't anybody want to order pizza from me? And realized the phone had been disconnected because the previous owner hadn't paid the bill. So again, discouraging, but actually I was glad because I thought, well, that's it. The phone's not working, but I might have some customers. So, and the last thing, overcoming rejection. I know that one of the things I did was a lot of door knocking, and that was what you did in those days. I would go to schools and try to get their pizza orders, and a lot of times people kind of shut me down and say, we're not interested, or we ordered from you before and it wasn't very good, those kind of things. But you just have to keep trying. And the story of Bill Gates is a great one. He had a lot of doors slammed in his face before he found someone who would listen to him. And also a really good story, and I encourage you to read it, is the founder of Second Cup. He was an alcoholic, homeless on the street, and kept trying to get someone to talk to him. And he would go in, and he didn't have anything on his resume. He hadn't worked in years. And eventually somebody said, you'd make a really good salesman. And that's how it started. So interesting story. Encourage you to read that one. And here we are, step number 1. When you decide to start a new business, you really do need to spend some time developing your idea. And sometimes you're going to do this research and realize maybe I just need to tweak it a bit or expand on your original concept. I mean, I don't know, Laura, when you opened your business, did it change dramatically?
Part of our market research was the fact that there weren't any bike shops in the area.
Oh, okay.
And we had access to all the trails that nobody really knew about. We could take them out there. And then in mountain biking, we, didn't know how big it was going to end up, but it was the beginning of a massive trend that now it's commonplace. So that was a great idea. We just didn't even know how great it was at the time. So we did a little bit of market research, but we got on the trend, which was really great.
Cool.
Yeah.
Sounds good. So, a lot of people come into our center, and Laura knows this as well, and they ask us, "What do you think? I'm going to do this. Is this a good idea?" And we we always say the same thing. Well, you need to do a little research, right, and find out if it makes sense. Now, we're going to talk a little bit more about market research a little bit later on. But one of the things I always tell people when they're looking at a business or makes sense to me is that you get experience. Laura had experience in her business. I had 15 years working in restaurants, and I learned a great deal. And what was funny is every time something didn't work out, if I had a marketing event and it was a total flop, I'd say, well, I need to do this differently. And if something was really good, I would write it down and I would do it again. I learned all aspects. I worked in the kitchen, obviously, back of house, front of house, bartending, managed the operations. Actually, when I was pregnant with my first child, they made me the bookkeeper because they decided they didn't want a pregnant cocktail waitress. So I learned a little bit about bookkeeping, but apparently not enough because I didn't do a very good job. So there are 4 questions you need to ask yourself. Is my product or service really original? And is there anyone else offering the same product or service to my target market? First question. The second one is, are there limitations? Now, obviously, we're in a COVID world right now, and COVID is impacting everyone. Many businesses had to pivot quickly in order to survive. I'm sure all of you witnessed this. Entrepreneurs had to be ready to change. And if you just look at restaurants, I mean, has anyone been to a restaurant lately? First, patios opened up with very strict guidelines, and now restaurants are open with social distancing in place, but not able to operate at full capacity. So the challenges they are facing, oh my goodness, so difficult, and only a seasoned entrepreneur would be able to cope. So very difficult time. Remember, a strong business idea can capture a niche market. So you may be more profitable competing with others who sell you may be more profitable if you look at a niche market as opposed to something that might be saturated. Question number 3, are people willing to pay for your product or service? A great idea can only translate into a successful business if people are willing to pay for it. Makes sense. So consider talking to people other than your friends and family to determine if your pricing is competitive. And that's when we're talking about networking. So if I was going to a networking event and I had an idea, I would walk up to somebody and if they, they would ask me to introduce themselves and say, so what do you do? I said, well, I'm working on this new service. What do you think? What would you pay for this, right? So get some opinions. Question number 4, government or industry restrictions that may limit you. So before you go ahead with your idea, you have to make sure that you can actually operate it. I've had a lot of people recently contact me about cooking in their home and selling product. It's not allowed. You have to get a commercial kitchen. You cannot store food of any kind in your home. So again, you need to find out what the rules are. And nowadays with COVID-19, the rules for physical distancing and safety protocols that are in place. As a business owner, you are responsible for knowing these. And you can go to our portal. Laura, there is a whole section on the portal on the safety protocols, I do believe, on the City of Mississauga website. So you can go there. Am I correct on that?
I will look for it, and
I'm pretty sure there is. Yeah, it's specifically for restaurants, food business, and describes all the rules and regulations. It's important to take time to evaluate the idea to make sure that it's right and it will appeal to your customers. And as I said, I actually had someone come in, they had an idea and they did all the research. I did a business plan review, they got the financing in place. And after they did their market research, they said, you know what? This market's too saturated. We're not willing to invest our money and take a risk. So yeah, sometimes your market research will, tell you this doesn't make sense. And then maybe you focus and you go in another area or you choose a different idea. So business ideas come from many sources. Gaps in the market, business ideas that are reapplied. This is really cool. Biggest example here is Uber. I know when this came out, I didn't know what it was. I didn't know how to spell it. It was odd. And my daughter said she just kept taking Ubers all over Toronto. And I was like, what is this Uber? And why does it know we're here? And why don't we have to pay it? The first time I took it, I thought, this is amazing. And so, yeah, that's something that obviously has been around forever. We've all ridden in taxis. But I think basically what happened is they probably did research and said, what are the issues with taking a taxi? Well, you have to have money. Because at the time, I don't think they took debit or credit. You have to wait forever and, all these different issues. So obviously Uber found something and reapplied it and obviously has been very successful. Another thing we see a lot of is people who've worked worked for someone for 20, 25 years and they decide to go into consulting. They're an expert in their field. I think one of the things that I've seen with successful consultants is that they have a network already. They have contacts and they're really amazing networkers. So networking is extremely key in a consulting business. Also solving a problem. And many times we find people who open companies because they are trying to find a service. It's not really available or difficult to get, or there's a long wait and they say to themselves, wow, maybe I should open this. I actually had a landscaper come to me a few years ago and he asked me, well, what do you think? Do you think there's, a demand? I said, well, I don't know, maybe call up some landscapers. So he called 4 landscapers in the town, which was Simcoe at the time. None of them returned his call. He left a message and said, I need some work done. I want a quote. Calls me back. He says, I guess I should do this because nobody's answering me. So there you go. There's your market research. Maybe they're so busy they can't answer the phone or call back. Who knows? So that is an excellent way to find out whether there is a demand. Also, products or services that make life easier for people. Oh, I love these types of businesses. It's always a treat for me to get my house cleaned. I don't do it very often, but to hire someone to do it, always a pleasure. Senior support services have grown, incredible growth. because a lot of seniors are staying in their own homes, but let's face it, they can't take care of their homes and they hire people to help them. So again, a lot of really good ideas here for starting a business. So research, research, research. It's so important. Laura will add a market research link to our website, or you can just go to our website, right, Laura? And
Oh, I'll drop it. I'll drop it in. There's a link to all these steps on our website, so which is one of the reasons we don't share this presentation, because actually our website has all those links and then some more. I will share that in the chat, but specifically the market research section is incredible. The free research that's available and the helpful links you don't want to miss it. So I'll put that
okay.
in the chat.
Thanks, Laura.
Yep.
So I started working in the pizza business as a manager in training, and I did achieve my goal because I wanted to open a store in a year. But I did a lot of market research first before I actually bought my store. It was unsuccessful, bankrupt, barely open, had virtually no sales or very low sales. So before I was going to take a chance and borrow all this money and, put my, all my personal belongings up for it, I grabbed a phone book and I went to every pizza place in my town and assessed the competition. I wanted to find out, what are they doing? Or maybe they're not busy, or maybe this is a town that just doesn't like pizza. So I did find that the majority of the businesses were doing well. They had reasonable image, their customer service was okay, and their product was okay. So there wasn't anything that I couldn't compete with. So I decided, you know what? This makes sense. I can improve the quality, I can improve the image, the service, and I can offer a reasonable price. So I felt my store had a failing grade and I could just make it happen. And I did. It was a battle. As I said, I knocked on doors and people said, yeah, your pizza's horrible. We ordered it a year ago. We'll never order it again. And I handed out, plenty of coupons. I was a networker like crazy. I joined the Rotary Club, the Chamber. I started a youth group and I did presentations at local schools and I went to kindergartens and all the way up to grade 12. I even had the little kids come in the store during the day and make pizzas. And to this day, I still have kids come up to me and say, you were the lady who came and made pizza for me. I was also voted favorite guest speaker because yes, because I used to bring free pizza. Who brings free pizza? Me. So so I just saw the high schools as being my customer. At the time, I didn't have their pizza orders. Everyone else did, all the competition. But here's the girl coming in every other week doing presentations. Eventually, they asked me, "So, would you like our pizza order?" And the kids would go home to mom and say, "Oh, the very nice pizza lady gave us coupons." So it really worked. It was a lot of work, but I basically dedicated one day a week for marketing, and I never did not do marketing that one day. I would put my son in the stroller, I'd go door to door, I'd hand out coupons, whatever it took. I needed to build my business and I needed to, when you start a new business, you really are starting clean slate. In my case, it was bad image and not a good reputation. So I really had to troubleshoot and make things happen, but obviously it worked. So market research, there is two types. I like primary research because it's research that you do. And then there's secondary. So primary is like focus groups and surveys. Laura, you've done focus groups, haven't you?
Yes. Yeah. And
Yes.
secondary research is great for starting. It's great to set benchmarks. It's that general industry stuff. Is it even worth, it's that foundation that's beyond your reach, industry research, things like that. I found very helpful to just get started to build out my audience too. But you're right, Sue. That primary research gets right to the heart of what motivates people and those people that are going to be your ideal clients. And focus groups are wonderful. You can do them online, and I did just conduct one with someone online. So, and there's a series of questions and guidelines. And if anyone wants help on that focus groups, just let me know for sure.
Thanks, Laura.
Yeah.
So actually, I I've done focus groups myself. I did one for when I worked for a youth employment center, and I gathered a bunch of kids that were out of school and not working, and they were considered at risk. And said, "What do you think of the youth employment center?" And they said, they said we should have beanbag chairs. I wasn't able to get those. Um, they also said we should have donuts, Timbits, and coffee. And they said the computer should be facing the wall so you can't see what we're doing. And I said, well, you're really supposed to be looking for work. So there were certain things that I could tweak. But we really found out what they were looking for. And when we made these changes, it was just unbelievable. Like, we always counted the number of kids that came in, and we saw our numbers increase. So really getting to the heart of finding out what your customers want. But again, you have to know who they are before you can survey them. And the secondary resources, amazing stuff is out there. I mean, there's so much out there. It's crazy. The library has e-resources. They have Canada Business Online, Scott's Directory. So you can look up your competition. You can see how many people are in your business, and you can find out all kinds of details about them. There's also the oh, no, that's for business planning. We'll talk about that a little later. But Stats Canada, just amazing. And as Laura said, all the links on the website. So really, if you are, writing your business plan, this market research section is really important for you to find out and understand your customer and understand the demographics.
And Sue, can I just pipe in here too that market research never really ends. It's part of you are starting right now. But when we had the bike shop, we had a cycling club. Like, it started small and grew to almost 400 plus people. And they were some of our greatest constant market research. And is this product working? We would go out and test it on the trail. We'd get immediate feedback. They liked this, they didn't like this. And we did that for our almost 20 years. So just always be thinking research.
And it's true. I mean, business owners, we say when you're starting out, do your market research, but existing businesses, if you want to be keeping up with the competition, you've got to be doing research because, like she said, your customers can change. And you got to make sure that your business changes with your customers, or your customers will go elsewhere.
Mm-hmm.
Step number 3 is business license and permits, and probably the one thing that people are very confused about, trying to understand, what do I need? But City of Mississauga has a very helpful website, mississauga.ca/BizPal, where you can put in your business and you can look up and see everything you need for your business. So just so you know, business license and permits are different from a business registration. A business license is what we call a local requirement, and it's through your municipalities. And a lot of businesses actually don't need a city license. So if you're not sure, again, BizPal will help you with that. In comparison, though, permits are issued for physical infrastructure, building, renovations, and normally require some sort of inspection. I went through this when I built my second store. I couldn't believe all the inspections I went through, and luckily I had this amazing general contractor who was very aware. I mean, even the labor board, Ministry of Labor, came by to make sure that all the people, the safety regulations for all the contractors and everything. So it was great, but I wasn't aware of any of this. So really, you have to be careful because you can't say, I didn't know, right? It's up to you. You're the business owner to know. So license can be issued for the business or the person selling the products or services, or actually the products or services themselves. If licensing is required, it's normally because of health and safety. So most retail and small service businesses, as I said, don't require a business. But if you're in the food business, you will find there is a lot of regulations. And if you're unaware, you can also contact our business licensing department at the City of Mississauga for additional assistance.
So Sue, I dropped that link that actually goes to the new webpage for the business licenses and permits. And
Thank you.
that has a link that takes you off to BizPal as well.
Perfect. When you start your business and you're working on your cash flow forecast, you will be able to determine how many people you will need, depending on the volume. Now, for some of you, you may be the only employee in your company. However, your business grows and you should plan for it to grow. So you may need to hire employees. What we find in most businesses is that people hire contractors because it is a way to handle, unforeseen increases in sales. Like our specialty painter, who was a client of ours, started out, he was his only employee, had a couple contractors here and there, but bid on a huge hotel contract and actually got it. So then he was scrambling to find people to work for him because obviously the customer had timelines. So hiring contractors, maybe temp labor, it is a way to be a little more flexible, especially for people in the catering business as well, or businesses that are seasonal. So it's important that you control your labor costs because there's some costs that are controllable and some costs are not controllable. Labor cost is something you can control. And it was probably one of the most challenging aspects for me because on a Friday, Saturday night, I would always have all our staff on. But it was always funny. Some nights the dinner hour just didn't start. And all I'm doing is looking at my labor cost. And it's huge, right? Like it's 5 o'clock and, the phones are only kind of ringing and, not that many customers are coming in. So I'd ask for volunteers, let them go home. And 15 minutes later, I would be really busy and I'd really want to call them back in again. But again, it's important. You have to give good service. Business can be unpredictable. But in my case, I stopped doing that because I just found that, what? I wanted to give good customer service. I'd worked so hard at getting these customers back. So I put on the extra labor, ran a little bit higher labor cost, but kept my customers happy. I don't know, Laura, did you have a big staff or was it just you and
Me and my partner mostly, and then we hired an extra mechanic. And that is hard when you start to scale, that's a big expense that you have to consider in your scaling costs. The other thing is too, we have a lot of business professionals on the call, and I was a communications consultant for quite a few years after my retail business. And part of my strategy I had to develop, it wasn't something I was going to hire other than bookkeepers and things like that. It was how was I going to manage the scale of the projects? And it doesn't really fall into staffing, but if you want to grow your business and you can't just be on your own. So what is that strategy going to be? And I had a plan in place of how I was going to get subcontractors and go out and work with them. And I made sure I understood how I was going to manage that. So that was my staffing part.
There's also some in my case, in my business, and I know that restaurants do this as well, sort of an on-call system as well. Again, it's voluntary. People ask for hours and you say, well, if it gets busy or somebody calls in sick, right? So um, I just remember that staffing was always one of those things that was so challenging. But for most of the people that are on this webinar, it sounds like a lot of people are solopreneurs. So you might not have to worry too much about that. But again, if you're scaling up, might look at hiring contractors or employees. Location. So obviously location is important. However, if you're going to your customer, probably not so much. Kind of depends on the type of business that you are operating. There are things to consider when you're renting retail space and how much space do you really need? And knowing how much you need is critical. Many people think they need more space than they actually need. You may want a larger space, but normally what makes sense is to be a little more realistic when you get started. Prove your business model, then increase the size of your facility if needed, because it can be very expensive per square foot. So again, sometimes we see people that start big and their business flourishes, but again, it kind of depends on what you're operating. Can you operate from home? We actually have information on the City of Mississauga website on businesses that can operate from home. Obviously, no food businesses can operate from home. Anyone operating an online business could most likely have a home-based business. You just can't have customers coming into your home. Again, a bylaw officer may come by, can't obviously put up signage. So if you're not sure about working from home, please go to the link. And I don't know if Laura can share that, but you can just go to our website and you'll find that out. You may need to rent a storage facility. I've seen this a lot where people don't actually need a storefront, but they're running an online store and they have inventory, huge inventory. And again, there can be some issues when you're storing that at your home. So again, you may want to rent a storage facility. You need to decide if you need a storefront. And sometimes people have operated, save money by using a co-working space, or in the case of a food business, a commercial kitchen. I've even seen people renting out restaurants that aren't open, let's say, in the morning and preparing their food then and renting it from the owner. So for anyone producing product for resale, business to business, you most likely will opt for an industrial space. The site will be, obviously the rent will be cheaper. And should you buy or lease, and this is basically up to whatever you have for your budget, and whatever the financing is that you have in place. Just remember, commercial lease is a legal contract and it is advisable. The government can't step in and help you, that you have a lawyer. Look at the lease before you sign it, because you are personally responsible for items such as rent, renovations, and damages. Step number 6 is the business plan. Now we have a webinar recorded on our website, and it was actually a new workshop. I think it was called How to Write a Business Plan. Was it, Laura? I think, yeah.
It was. I'll
yes.
drop the link in here.
Thank you. So
Yeah.
excellent. It was recorded, and really we just went through how to write a business plan. We went through every section. It is a written document, and it provides key information to key stakeholders. And it's how you plan to market your business, sell your products and services, and how you plan to make money, which is really important. It's the number one thing that I hear from when we run our pitch events and we have clients who pitch their ideas to our judges. The number one thing the judge comes up with is, how are you going to make money? Very important. It's a management tool. It shouldn't be something you just throw on a shelf and never go back to. It's something that needs to be constantly updated. You may need to tweak your marketing plan if things aren't working. There are important sections in a business plan. As you can see here, we have our executive summary, basically the Coles notes of your business plan. It is written last. And the reason for that is you need to do all of these other sections first before you write your executive summary. It shouldn't be longer than 2 pages. Your competitive analysis, marketing and sales. Again, there's business plan templates available and sample plans on our website, but also you can go to the Gale Virtual Library through the Central Library. And all you need is your library card and your last 4 digits of your phone number as your password. And they have all kinds of sample business plans. The library has amazing resources. You can also go to lynda.com. Lynda.com is available. I think it's called LinkedIn Learning now. There are I think it's over 300,000 videos from industry experts on everything under the sun, including business plans and how to sell and how to do market research. So some really great resources. It's funny, I wish all this stuff was available when I started out because I don't remember anything. Did you have anything when you started?
Well, that was it, because I started and we didn't have a plan, and it blew up. Like, it was crazy busy. I actually went back to school and got a business management specialty in retail. And part of that program was to write a business plan. It was extensive. It was incredible. In the old days, it was a binder that I referenced all the time. And the mission statement was my guiding statement for even during all of my expansions. And it was incredible. But I dedicated almost 2 years to writing that and learning how to write it. So it's not like it used to be. The business plan has to be agile and have the key information, but we don't want to spend forever before we actually get out and operate. But Sue, like you said, all these key sections have to be filled out and constantly be updated as you build your business. So
thanks, Laura. Now I think it's possible to overplan, and I'm going to give you an example. I had a client, and he came in to see me once a month for about 2 years. and I reviewed his business plan, and he came to all my workshops. He just loved everything. He just says, "Oh, you're amazing. Thank you so much." And in the end, he came in and he sat down in front of me and said, "What do I do next?" I said, "Open." For God's sakes, open. So yeah, you can over plan, and the thing about running a business is it's never going to be perfect. You're going to learn as you go along. You're going to make mistakes. Oh my goodness, I made lots of them. But as long as you learn from your mistakes. So it's funny, I actually would, if I made we made a huge mistake one day. I love this story. I call it my pizza disaster story. We delivered 100 pizzas to the wrong school, got there, and they said, "No, we didn't order pizza." I go back, I donate all the pizzas to the food bank, and find out, 15 minutes later, another school calls and wants their pizzas. Oh, it was just a disaster. So I was so upset. I thought I was gonna lose the one order, and I did actually for 6 months. And then I had to give them the order free because, they got it like 2 hours later. So I went back to the pizza store and I said, I have to learn from this. What could I have done better? So we had a plan in place. We're going to call up all our orders 48 hours in advance. We're going to confirm and make sure we never do this again. And we never did it again. But again, it's kind of an interesting story now, but at the time, a bit of a disaster. So learn from your mistakes. Don't overplan, but obviously having a plan in place does make sense. Number 7, determining your business financing options. So this is probably the number 2 thing we hear about. Everybody needs money. And we get that. But I would say that the main reason I see businesses fail is that they do not have sufficient financing in place. First of all, you cannot borrow all the money to start a business. I know everyone's eager, they want to start a business, but if you're borrowing all your money and things don't go right, where can you go? Is there more money? Can you borrow more money? In many cases, you can't. So it's a really good idea to do what I did. I saved some money. I had some money to live on, as I said, for 6 months. I had a little contingency fund put away just in case things didn't go well. So if you are looking for money, though, however, there are plenty of options. Loans, obviously. The Small Business Financing Loan is probably one of the most popular with small businesses because the government guarantees a portion. I'd say it's a little easier to get. There are also angel investors. Again, you can check them out on the angel investors, but they do tend to invest in only certain types of businesses, also venture capitalists. There also is a wage subsidy program. This is available to business. Normally, this pays for training, and you can apply and find out about this by going to an employment center, a local employment center. There's also the Business Development Bank of Canada. Now, they do tend to be a higher risk lender, and their interest rates are much higher because of that. And government grants, I'm asked this probably 10 times a day, what government grants are out there. There is limited government funding currently available for startups. However, the Starter Company Plus program is the program that we run. It is currently, the application process is closed, but we will be running this program again. And as Laura mentioned, please sign up for our e-newsletter, because I'm not going to be able to call you up. If you email me and say, "Sue, let me know when this program's running again," that's not going to happen. So sign up for our e-newsletter, and when we are running the program again, which will most likely be in the fall next year, you can find out how that program works and how you can apply. And also there's one more program which is called Futurepreneur. Futurepreneur is a loan program, and it's available to anyone 18 to 39 years of age. They will lend you up to $45,000. Futurepreneur is also supported by BDC and government funding. They have very attractive interest rates, and I believe the first $15,000 is available at the first year. I think it's interest only and very reasonable interest rates. I think it's prime plus 2. So really interesting program. Check it out, futurepreneur.ca, no E in future. Oh, and by the way, for any of those financing, for anything, you need a business plan. So very important to have a concise business plan when you go to see your banker. And you really have to have a clear idea of what you're looking for. I actually had a panel of bankers come to a workshop. I had bankers, I had Futurepreneur, I had BDC, and 3 different, like RBC and TD and Scotia. And I said to them, what should people not do when they're applying for a business loan? And they said the worst thing they could do is come in and say, I think I need about 50 to 100,000, and then not actually know what they need it for. They said that is probably the worst thing you can do when you're going in for a loan. You need to go in and you say, look, this is what I need. If you're buying equipment, bring in copies of invoices that you've printed off from the supplier so you know exactly what you're looking for. It is a lot easier to get financing for equipment because they basically put a lien on the equipment, but you really have to have a clear and concise idea of what you're looking for. So determining your business structure, some of you may have registered your companies already. Businesses can be sole proprietors, partnerships, or corporations. There are others. We won't discuss them at this point. Not-for-profits and cooperatives, but the main ones are sole proprietor, and this is probably the easiest one, and that's probably why most people use sole proprietor. One person owns the business and responsible operates the business. Partnership, 2 or more people, and a corporation is an incorporated company. So those are really your 3 options. Corporation is distinct legal entity and separate from its owners. So as mentioned, sole proprietor, you're not an incorporated business. You are solely responsibility for making decisions. You receive all the profits and also all the losses, and you do not have separate legal status. Now, what I see is a lot of people start out as a sole proprietor. I don't know, Laura, were you sole proprietor, partnership, corporation?
No, as the bike shop, I was incorporated. It was part of what the lawyer recommended for
As a
liability
retail.
reasons. Well,
Yeah.
no, it was the mountain biking, high
Oh, right.
risk, right?
Yeah.
So,
No, I was incorporated because a franchise has to be incorporated. Well, in my case, it had to be incorporated. But again, liability. And I mean, when you have a retail space, you know, things can happen. Home base is a little different. But most people start as sole proprietor and, you know, down the road incorporate. It really is your choice, but it's always a good idea to talk to an accountant or a bookkeeper for advice on this. It's easy. I don't think you can do it in person right now, but you can do it online for $60, and then a name search is $8. Again, partnership, as I said, partners are individually and jointly responsible for the business, and in some cases, one partner may contribute more money and the other person works in the business. It just depends on the relationship. But again, you should probably get a lawyer to look at your partnership agreement. Forms of business corporation, you can be federally incorporated or provincially incorporated. You can have employees, you can sign contracts. So if you are considering incorporating, again, advice of an accountant or a lawyer is recommended. Step number 9 is registering your business. So once you've made the decision and you've done your homework, then you'll decide what kind of structure you want. And then you're at step 10, which is probably the best step because this is where you get to launch your idea. Now, I'm looking at the time, we're doing okay. I'm just going to look at some other considerations because these are probably the questions that I'm asked all the time. Business taxes for anyone who's a sole proprietor or a partnership. You just have to attach a T1 form to your personal income tax. For corporations, it's a T2 form, and we do have a T2 workshop coming up. We did have CRA come recently, and we'll probably have that info session again. But there's some great resources. You can go to cra.ca, ask a question, or you can call, and there is a 1-800 number. HST, a lot of people are confused about this. It's 13% on most goods. MBEC normally has an HST workshop. However, it's been postponed due to COVID. And as mentioned earlier, please register for our e-newsletter for updates on that. But basically, you don't have to register for HST unless you have gross revenue over 30,000 in the calendar year. However, a lot of people do register for HST because they're buying a lot of product for their business. And this is the question I get a lot is, should I register if I don't have to? Well, if you're buying a lot of product for your business, you don't get those input tax credits back unless you are collecting HST from your customers. So something to think about. Other taxes oh, sorry, Laura.
Sue, I was just, no, it's okay. They did cover GST, HST in the CRA information session, and they did give us some useful links. So I'm going to drop the main one into the chat.
Oh, okay.
And it'll take you to the HST general technical information.
Perfect. Other taxes you might have to pay, property tax and health tax, payroll tax. I mentioned input tax credits. Those are the ones I was just talking about. HST, how you actually, if you're buying product for your business and you're collecting HST, you end up paying the balance. And sometimes you can actually have a credit. Record keeping, really important because you can get audited. You have to keep detailed records. And Laura, you mentioned before about online businesses. Can you tell me what that was again?
Yes, during the CRA session, they mentioned, because that question came up, do you have to keep the printed document or can you just have it digitally? So their answer was, if it started out as a digital receipt, that is all you need to have as a record. If it starts out as a printed receipt, you are required to keep that printed record. In addition, you may also want to scan it for your own online recording, but you do have to maintain that paper record.
Thank you. And you must keep it for 6 years. I was in business for 24 years. I was audited 3 times. All 3 times were very nerve-wracking, of course, because you're always worried that you've made a mistake. Luckily, I had everything organized, or actually my accountant had everything stored in a storage unit, which I paid for, but it was kept dry and obviously security because I had all this private information on my customers and the old days credit card receipts and slips and all that. But the thing that he told me is that auditors stop looking if they see that you're organized. If they come in and they say, okay, I need the box from I need your records from 2017, the first 3 months, and you don't know where they are. It's kind of like when you get pulled over and they ask for your license and you can't find it. Maybe now they're going to make you come out of the car. So for your paperwork, keep it organized because if you just have your hand right on that file and hand it to them, they know that you're organized and maybe they're not going to go back because honestly, they can go back 6 years if they want. They can go back through everything. And luckily in all 3 cases, I think I owed a little bit of money. And in the other case, they actually owed me money. So keeping things organized, very important. Now, some people, most of my clients actually use QuickBooks or Sage, which used to be called Simply Accounting. Excellent way to keep track of things. If you're not, computer savvy and you don't want to do it, then, obviously a bookkeeper will do this for you. There are some bookkeeping resources, and I think Laura has links to bookkeeping resources. If not, I can email them to you. Privacy, it's in that handout I mentioned before.
Right. Okay.
Privacy and security. There's something called the Personal Information Process and Electronic Documents Act. I am not an expert in this, PIPDA. But you always need to get consent from customers when you are collecting information, and you need to tell them why you're collecting information. And then there is the Canada anti-spam legislation. So if we call it CASL, if you're planning to use digital marketing as part of your marketing activities, you will need to be aware of CASL. And Laura has been the expert for the city of Mississauga, or let me say MBEC, making sure that we're CASL compliant. So Laura, CASL?
Yes, and I don't really think it's an option for digital marketing. It has to be part if you're going to be relevant and competitive. It's just to what extent. So check out the webinars, including the email marketing one that I did. And we do talk about that in as part as collecting your emails. So CASL is the Canadian anti-spam law. I'll drop a link to the Fight Spam. Even if you listen to my webinars and everyone else, it's still your responsibility. For all of these legalities is your responsibility. You can't come back and say, well, somebody told me this, somebody told me that. There are rules and regulations. One, there's three, there's decline, there's implied, and express. Express means, hey, I want to receive your emails, your commercial electronic messages. It might be texts, whatever that is, and they opt in to receive that. You have that for lifetime till they opt out. There's a lot more around that, but that's really what you want. Implied means you've done business with them, which means you can communicate to them. If they say they do not want to be part of your email anymore, you have 10 days to take them off your list. And it is quite serious. Even as a small business owner, you can be fined. It is based on a complaint system. So take that in consideration, and I will drop that in to your to the chat.
Is it also true that you can't send an email to someone without permission, but you can still pick up the phone and call them?
Yes, the old-fashioned way, call them. So if you're not sure and you had an email from a business you owned 10 years ago and you're not sure if you can email them, call them.
Yeah.
Like it's just
Can
and
you
say,
text
"Hey, I
them
got a new
though?
business."
Can you
Can you
text
collect?
them? Text them.
No, not if
No
it's
texting?
no,
Not
not if
if
you're
it's
sending marketing related
massive
content.
marketing. Okay. So
And
yes, you can still
that's
pick up the
yeah.
phone.
Pick up the phone, absolutely, or connect with them on LinkedIn. That's socially, if you have a connection there, that's an implied relationship. Reach out to them and say, "Hey, how are you doing?" And that's, it's different than just doing a blast marketing message to
Okay.
them.
Thanks, Laura.
You're welcome.
Insurance. All businesses need insurance. The type you need will depend on your business. So, for example, if you are a consultant, you probably will need errors and emissions insurance. Um, one of the things, actually, I'll tell you a little insurance story. So, I remember having to get insurance for the store, and I thought, wow, this is really expensive, and they had all these deductibles, and I didn't really understand it, but I thought, you know what? I'm just going to go with a larger deductible because chances are, all my equipment isn't going to go down. Well, lo and behold, it did. One New Year's Eve, we were struck by lightning, the compressor. And I have to tell you, it was probably about a $20,000 repair. My deductible was $1,500, but it just didn't seem like much when I realized that I would save this kind of money. So you know what? Insurance protects you. It protects you from the things that you think are never going to happen. Of course, after I had the claim, my deductible went up. But again, nothing ever happened again. I mean, likelihood of that happening. I also had business interruption insurance, which I have to say came in handy when a gentleman hit a hydro pole and my power was out for 3 days. So the insurance company paid me for my loss in sales, which was very helpful because I still had to pay people. I still had to pay, and of course, all the product went bad. So again, these are all the things you want to have, but also liability insurance. As soon as you get into business, you're just opening yourself up. So you really want to protect yourself. You just never know what can happen. So an insurance broker or insurance person will always, talk worst case scenarios. What if this happens, right? So it really does protect you. So it's important to look into the type of insurance you need. Good idea to talk to an insurance agent who's familiar with your business, who insures other businesses such as yours, and they will, be able to tell you what type of insurance they have. And lastly, WSIB, Workplace Safety and Insurance Board. This is something that you have to have if you're hiring employees, and you need to cover your employees. I believe it's within 2 weeks of hire. Also, as a entrepreneur, a business owner, you can have personal WSIB, and I had this on myself when I first started out. And it was, it actually worked out really well because I did have to have surgery. It was work related. I was off for 6 weeks and I was paid the entire time. So, yeah, so that helped a lot. So those are just some of the considerations. I mean, I probably could have 10 pages of other considerations, but these are the main ones, the main questions.